Thanks to AutoAlert for being our title sponsor of the In the Box interviews with Modern Dealership Magazine here at NADA 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Big ceremony happening. Is it later today? The luncheon is tomorrow. With AIADA.
Correct.
Howard Hakes, who we interviewed earlier here, you can check out that episode. I'll try to put a link somewhere in here, is passing the torch as the chairman to this man right here. This is Jason Porter. He's from Bellevue, Washington,
Yep.
2 Honda stores, dealer principal,
Yep.
and you've been in the car business for a while.
My whole life.
Your whole life.
I think age 5.
Does
Does that count?
What was your first job at a dealership? And how'd you get it?
Probably, well, the real job, the one that I actually got paid for, was the summertime cleaning out the parts bins, you know, the dusty parts bins. We also had a thing called the half room. I'm not as tall as Howard, but imagine Howard being in a half room where the ceiling here goes back about maybe 50 yards, and that's where all the storage was. No one else could clean it, but my dad got me to go clean that room.
You must have been young.
Oh, yeah. And I actually got paid a few bucks for it. So.
And you grew up in the dealership. You said you're the 3rd generation?
I'm 3rd generation. My grandfather was a Buick dealer in Auburn, Washington, so we've been in Washington our whole life. My dad started the Honda store, in the Bellevue Honda store in 1979, and then we also purchased the Honda store in Kirkland in the early 90s. And so I've been involved with this. It's been a little unique too, because my background, besides selling cars after college, just got right into it immediately after going to a Washington State auto dealer convention, and just came right in, interviewed with our sales manager, got involved, and then my father put me through the track of the office, so I got to do payroll, accounts payable. The office manager was absolutely excited when I moved on. Okay, too much batching. So then from there, I became the parts and service director, and I'll tell you, that's I'm blessed that he did that and decided to make sure I was going to come up in the business that way, because right now, it's very critical.
Your dad must have done a great job, because your peers have trusted your leadership, and I'm assuming it puts you in a position of being chairman of the AIADA.
Sure.
Just for those dealers that are watching, what exactly is the AIADA?
So we are the International Auto Dealer Association. And our main focus, well, first off, this year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, so that's really exciting. But our main focus is free trade, and ever since 1970, when it was founded by a few Volkswagen dealers, and then more of the international nameplates joined throughout the years, what's always been our constant issue with the import brands is dealing with the issue of free trade. Right now we know it's a big issue because we're hearing a lot about tariffs. And so getting back to really learning that, it's the same message that my dad was telling me in the 90s when I was even coming back to Washington, D.C. with him. And I said, you know, yeah, this is kind of an important issue. You know, this is an important group to be involved with that's centrally focused on trade.
In
he was, yeah. So we were the first, we also had an Acura store, left that out, but we were the first Acura store in 1986 in our town. And so as that started and the protectionism discussions were up, my father says, hey, Jason, if you're going to be involved in this business, one of his main things is, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Right? So when it comes to going back to Washington, so he started to bring me back. He says, this is really important. And if you do that to get involved, I just learned at a young age that it's critical. We have to have that engagement, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You just don't know what's going to happen.
You be coming in as the new chairman of AIADA, that means that you're going to be doing a lot of traveling overseas. And is that true, or working?
We don't know that yet.
Oh,
if that's going to happen, then we got some real big issues coming.
Well, I just know that there's it focuses on international, and I know. Well, let me just ask you this: how much of a relief was it for dealers that USMCA passed?
You know, one, because
NAFTA,
something did pass, right? Okay. Formerly NAFTA, and through Howard's chairmanship, you know, just to get that, to see the president sign that was so critical, because now we kind of have the written plan. It's been hard to get the written plan and what the plan is for the future as it relates to tariffs. But now we're waiting for Canada to have them sign that. Assuming that they go through, we just have a better position to operate on a go-forward plan based off of that agreement. And I think the auto dealers will definitely appreciate that too as well. I know for our brand, especially for Honda, because sometimes the international nameplates, the perception is that these cars are sent in. Well, speaking for Honda, Honda builds here. And so we're as American and domestic as the domestics are in a lot of ways, and we hire the local people. And so those are the things we have to remind, and so part of these agreements with USMCA, I know is a really good thing for our manufacturers.
Politics aside, and just talking pop culture, especially with leadership now in Washington, a lot of people would say that relationships with foreign countries are allies, and those allies being Germany, who has cars that are sold here, Japan, China. The rhetoric that's happening, that people are saying that relationships are kind of becoming unstable, is that true for the auto industry and the retail side?
So I think it's always true. You need to have the people in place to be able to go and deliver the message at the right time. And I think this year, and especially a couple of years ago, there was this introduction of a BAT, border adjustment tax, which was a 20% tax on anything coming, across the borders. The biggest issue that I've seen going forward with any of these agreements is the key is to get to an agreement. Okay, and so through our association and having all the wonderful dealers that are involved with visiting the legislators on the Hills to make sure why it's important for us to see these done, all the people that we employ in our local towns, all the tax base that we produce, it's very important that we keep progressing forward. And to leave stuff open-ended without agreements is not in our best interest. We want to keep pressing ahead, make sure tariffs are left out.
How is you got involved at a young age with your father? How did your father get involved? And if a dealer is not involved now, but does have these kind of worries or challenges when he wants to help, or how do they get involved? How does the evolution of dealers getting involved in the AIADA?
So as I kind of alluded a little bit earlier, you really have to, my recommendation, and if my kids were coming in the business, I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old daughter, we'll see if they're going to have some interest, and they see what I've done. But my dad, he's just started bringing me, if you're going to get in this business, this is something that you have to do. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? That's kind of his main line. But I strongly urge that dealers, as they're growing up and they start, it doesn't even have to be someone that's in the family. Maybe it's a key general manager, it's a key service and parts director, whoever that may be. Look for diversity inside your store and just invite them for the opportunity to maybe, we have a program called Invite Your Legislator In. Get the local legislator, come in, walk them around, show them the dealership, and just talk about why you matter in your community, in your district. It's really not hard. Because one of the things that we're going to hear a lot of is, hey, what's really getting done in Washington? Sometimes there's a little bit of apathy that's out there on, does anything really get done? The key is when it does happen, who are our friends? Who can we count on? Who can we call that already know to have us in the back of their mind?
And this is bipartisan.
You can do this, correct?
Okay.
Correct, yeah. And so the grassroots effort for meeting everybody, okay, whoever's representing, everyone pays taxes. And so certainly with taxes, that's what you mean to your community and how much money that goes in there. It doesn't mean you have to go to Washington. Just invite people, invite your legislators in, and tell your story. It's really simple. You don't have to know. You don't have to read Politico, or everything to get up to speed. AIADA, the staff is amazing because they educate you on every little issue. We have a fly-in coming up in May, early May, where you're going to go back, and one of our big issues right now will be talking about the Section 232 tariffs. I mean, that is under the idea and under the premise that our products are a threat to national security. And it's ridiculous. So I mean, if that's kind of the idea, and we all know that that's ludicrous, well, we kind of got to go make sure that we do our part and educate everyone that that's ludicrous. Don't you agree? And most people would.
Is your focus as the new chairman coming in? Because Howard's got it for another 4 hours or something.
Yeah, till tomorrow.
Yeah, till tomorrow, 14 hours.
Yeah.
Does the focus change between you and Howard, or is it more of an organizational focus that you guys follow?
So the nice thing about our group is this isn't something that's happened over a period of 2 years. I was part of a next generation program brought in by Janelle Ross and Ray Munganast in about 2011. And so as you grow up, you go through the board committees. We have great affinity partners, clearly with Auto Alert here today too as well. But through growing that, you learn everything along the way. But what's simple, it's always the same message. It's trade. Why we joined was because of the free trade. So we never really get off.
It's a centralized message.
Never get off the map. It's just different issues or how the bills are brought up, or how the how it's conceived. So with the mission being simple there, passing on from Howard to me, he's a great trainer. I mean, I think I'll always have to call him number one, and I'm his number two. You know, it's just kind of.
You become number one.
It's kind of how it works. Yeah,
That's
exactly. Exactly.
Are you going to start having people refer to you as Jay instead of Jason, since Howard goes by H?
Oh, does he go by H? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I call him number one.
You just call him number one?
Yeah. And I don't need that.
I call my
Jason's
boss 99 is what I call him, because he believes he's right 99% of the time.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that.
So what I got from this, and I think a really big thing for dealers to take away from this conversation that you and I had, is the best way, the first step for them to get involved is to invite those elective officials into their dealership and show the culture and what they're doing. You know, and it's simple as that.
I'm trying, when I think of what's the best way, I'm trying to see, okay, how do I get involved with AIADA? That's usually a question, or why do I want to get involved? Okay, well, you certainly don't want someone else on your opposing point of view to tell your story for you. Okay?
Correct.
So if that's simple enough, then what's the next step? And it doesn't mean you have to fly into Washington, D.C., although we want everyone there. Okay, but you just have to start by picking up the phone, call our office, and we have a staff there that sets up the appointments. They check with you, and it's a half hour's worth of time, 45 minutes. They want to meet your employees. If you have 50 employees, 100, whatever, 1,000 employees, it's so important for them because they want to also be out in the marketplace and see their constituents, and that you've set up that relationship. You might get a phone call and, hey, what do you think about this policy issue or that? And so creating the relationships is what it's all about.
What I like about this is that maybe there's a young general sales manager watching right now, and maybe somebody in fixed ops that's in their early 20s that decides they're going to make that move and join AIADA, and 10 years from now they're going to be sitting where you're sitting.
Absolutely.
Coming in as chairman. Jason Corder, he's the new chairman of the AIADA, also dealer principal up at 2 stores up in Bellevue Honda, and I appreciate you coming on In the Box with Modern Dealership Magazine. We're going to follow up with you, and I'd like for Modern Dealership Magazine is going to get more involved in what the issues and challenges are
anytime
globally for dealers. So thanks again.
Yep, thank you much.